Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at our first example of HTML injection, but we're also going to take a look at how we can set up and deploy vulnerable virtual machines on our TryHackMe platform. So first thing to make sure is that you have burp suite turned on, even though we won't need it for this lecture, but it's good practice to get used to using it and having it as a proxy every time you perform some website penetration testing. Then go and log in to your TryHackMe account. And now we want to see how we can actually deploy their virtual machines and test them. So for this course, we're going to be using OWASP 10 Vulnerabilities Lab, which is free to use on this platform. It is located if you go on Learn, then you navigate to Web Hacking Fundamentals. And under the Web Hacking Fundamentals, if we scroll a little bit down, we're going to see OWASP Top 10, which is the room that hosts top 10 most critical website vulnerabilities. And it's also free to use. So let's click on it. This will be the room that we're going to be doing. And in this specific room, we don't really have an HTML injection. However, we can use a different task that we have right here to demonstrate HTML injection. And that different task is going to be this one, task number 5, Command Injection Practical. Just so you don't get confused, we are not yet learning command injection. We're going to be focusing on command injection later in the course. For now, we want to do HTML injection. And we can also do it on this lab right here. You don't need to read any of this for now. We're going to leave that for later. For now, we're only interested into starting this machine. But there is one problem with this. Once we start the machine, it will be deployed in their own network. So we must VPN to their network in order to be able to access this machine. How can we do that? Well, it's rather simple. We can do that with the help of OpenVPN that we have inside of our Kali Linux. And they have a good guide on how we can do that. So navigate to this icon right here, then navigate to Access. And here we have the page where we can download our configuration file that we will use to access their VPN server. Here I have my VPN server selected, which is currently this one, and if I click on download my configuration file, it will open this file, which will have my username as well as .ovpn. If we save the file, it will be located in our downloads directory, and all we have to do afterwards is open a terminal, navigate to your downloads directory. If I type ls, here will be the file that I just downloaded, and in order to VPN into their network, we type sudo openvpn and then the file name, which in my case is this one. If I press enter, I enter my password. In just a few seconds, we will have everything set up. And now if we open a third terminal and we type ifconfig, you will see this third interface right here where you will get the IP address from the VPN, which in my case is this one. And this is the IP address that we will use to communicate with the vulnerable virtual machines that we're going to deploy on their network. So now that we did that, we can refresh this, and hopefully if we did everything correctly, this should update our information. We're currently connected to their VPN server, and this is our Kali Linux IP address. Okay, now let's go back to the lab. Now that we did all of this, let's navigate again to Web Hacking Fundamentals. Let's go to OWASP Top 10. And as already mentioned before, to demonstrate HTML injection, we're going to start this machine under task 5. Let's start it by clicking on this Start button. And it will say starting your machine, please wait. In a few seconds, we're going to see this tab right here. It will say that the machine expires in 59 minutes, so that is how long we have to solve our task. Even though we're not really doing the command injection task, but this is how long the machine will stay up. And the IP address of the machine will be shown in 39 seconds. So all we have to do for now is to wait for this timer to go to 0 in order to be able to see the IP address of our target machine. And here it is. I got my IP address of my virtual machine. Now, it gives you this option to copy it, and the first thing that I always like to do with this is I like to try to ping that IP address, because sometimes it might take a couple of minutes for you to be able to communicate with this machine. You won't be able to communicate with it straight away, so pinging or visiting the HTTP web page won't really work. As we can see right here, I'm still not able to ping it. So let's wait for a couple more seconds, and hopefully in a minute or two we should be able to visit the web page of this IP address, and also we should be able to ping it. Okay, a few minutes went by, and let's try it again. If I ping the IP address, now we have established connection and we can communicate with this machine. Awesome. Let's Control-C this, and the next thing that we want to do is visit the web page on this machine. Now, for the command injection part, if we go to the task that we have, we would be visiting this link right here. But we're not really interested in performing command injection right now. We will do that later. For now on, we want to perform HTML injection. So what I want you to do is I want you to copy the IP address of your machine and add / at the end. Press enter, and it should load this page that says directory search. It's a very simple web page. As we can see, we do have a user input right here. We can type something in, and then we have a button to submit. So let's type, for example, test. Click on submit, and we get an error. User test was not found on the system. Now, what does this tell us? If we go back to our theory video of HTML injection, we remember that if our input that we specified reflects somewhere on the web page, we can try and test for HTML injection, and our test was reflected here. So what would happen if we, for example, typed HTML code? Let's give it a try. Let me just zoom this in so we can see everything better. And I'm going to type h1 and then close header tags and then capital test and then close header tags again. So we have open header tags for the h1 header size. We have test and close h1 tags. Let's submit this, and here it is. We get test printed in header of size 1. So that means this is vulnerable to HTML injection. And just in case you're not sure, we can do something like this, for example, h1, and then we can also underline to see whether it will process the underline tags of HTML code, and if it will underline our test string. Don't forget to close both underline tag and header 1 tag, and if we submit, well, here it is. We get our test string underlined. This means this web page is vulnerable to HTML injection. And this is the most simple example that we can have. Nonetheless, we're going to take a look at some other examples and some other possibilities with HTML injection in the next videos, but for now on, we'll learn how we can deploy our virtual machines inside of our TryHackMe account, and we also learned how we can connect to its VPN. Remember that you will have to do this every time you start TryHackMe. But once you downloaded this file that we have right here, you can always use the same file. Just also make sure that you use the same VPN server. You just run this command every time you want to use TryHackMe, and it will connect to their VPN, which will allow you to access their machines whenever you start them. Okay, awesome. Now that we got that out of the way, let's see an example of HTML injection on our OWASP BWA virtual machine. See you in the next video.